Good afternoon, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Mary Beth Calabro, president of the Providence Teachers Union. And I, like you, am a victim of grand theft pension. That's what I like to call it. So, as a result of then Treasurer Gina Raimondo's brain trust, I have to work probably twice as long as I naturally would have. This is my 24th year teaching. And I have, I'm a late bloomer, so I got married later than most, and I had a child later than most, so my son is 11. And I am in my 24th year of teaching. And based on Gina's rule of 95, I'll either be dead or 65 when I'm able to retire, and take 40% of my pension when I should have been able to retire in 8 years and take 70% of my pension. And some of the things that annoy me about that are, as an educator, it's very important to me to understand what contract means, and contracts are very important to me. And so when I signed on to become an educator in the city of Providence, you have to remember that it was 1993, so I signed on. I left my parents' home in North Providence. I had to move to the city of Providence, which was, I wanted to teach there. And I made $55 a day. And I had to pay $450 a month in rent. So you do the math, it doesn't compute. But that being said, when I signed on to be a teacher in Providence, I was given a promise. A promise that they would take a certain amount of money, mandatorily, out of my check, bi-weekly, and that would go into my pension. And my mother, God rest her soul, a teacher as well, said to me, that's your future. Your pension is your future. You plan for your future based on your pension. Okay, so I did that. And my belief was that I was going to have this pot of money that was partially mine, because it was taken out of my paycheck every other week, and then the contribution made by the state, or the city at the time, and that would be what I would live off of in my old age. And I would get to retire when I felt it was time for me to go. And then along comes, Pension Gina, and she changes all of that. So she changes my future. When you change my future, I have a problem with that. The only person who should be in charge of my future is myself. Me, my child, my husband, we're in charge of my future. Not some arbitrary, capricious politician with ties to dark money and ties to Wall Street. They should not be guiding my future. That should not impact my decisions about where my child goes to school or where we live going forward. None of those things should be in her control, but they are. And so it was a breath of fresh air to meet Matt. Actually, I met Matt when I brought Randy Weingarten here to Providence, the president of the National AFT, to look at and tour the schools. Because, in case you don't know, we're also in a contract dispute with the mayor. There's no dispute. He's not talking to me, and we're not negotiating. So I guess it's one-sided. I'm the one who's angry, and he's the one who's doing nothing. So we brought Randy in to see the schools and see what our teachers are doing, because great things are happening. In spite of what you hear in the news, and in spite of what you see on social media, great things are happening in Providence schools. We have the most amazing, resilient, incredibly talented and gifted children in our city, and they are not given enough credit. We have the most amazing, talented, and gifted teachers in the Providence School Department, and they are not given enough credit. And so with all the work that we have to do as educators in educating our students, and it's become such a massive job above and beyond the actual teaching and learning piece, but now we're working on the social emotional, and we're working on helping families and reaching the whole child and the whole family and the whole community. Now we have to think about doing this for 10, 15 years longer than we normally would have. And in the sick buildings that we are in, especially in Providence, and in other urban ring schools, and we all see on the news about the Save Our Schools initiative and the fact that we need funding for our schools, but our buildings are sick buildings. Central High School was closed down, an entire wing of Central High School was closed down a year ago because of mold infestation. We had a teacher go out on OJI because she had mold in her blood. The mold in her blood levels were so high that she had to go on IV antibiotics for a month. So she was out of school. So of course, she looks bad because she's one of those people who abuses her sick time. She just wanted to get back to school. The mold infestation at Central High School on the 3rd floor was so bad that they built a wall and closed off a wing of the school. And they moved kids and teachers around all day long instead of keeping them in those classrooms. These are true stories that happen every single day in Providence Public Schools, but not just Providence Schools, Central Falls Schools, Pawtucket Schools, West Warwick Schools, Cranston, North Providence. We all have very sick buildings. Our buildings are very old. So when you have someone who's impacted like that, or we have another teacher who is out on OJI because a child hit her in the head and it gave her an aneurysm, and she's got to think about, I have 15, 20 more years to go. I'll be doing this when I'm 65 years old, and I'll be getting 40% of my pension. That kind of thing wears on you. And if you see what happened in Arkansas and Oklahoma when teachers walked out, they were at critical mass. They had it. They were done. They were done in. They were disrespected. They were taking 2 and 3 and 4 jobs to just keep their families afloat. And we're not in that situation in terms of pay, but what we are in situations in terms of our pension is that we're living longer than ever expected. So for our 40%, when I'm retiring at 60, on 40%, when I get that lovely little newsletter that apparently costs everyone $8 a month for a maintenance fee or whatever the heck they charge us, and $2 more a month for another maintenance fee, when nobody calls them and nobody has their money touched, but somebody's getting $10 a month just to maintain my pension. When I look at it and it says I'm going to get $492 a month, $492, like I can spend that in Target in one trip. $492 a month. I've worked 24 years. And I'm going to get $492 a month right now? I can't even, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what I'm going to do, and I'm not alone. I'm the weird AB group, right? So we're kind of stuck in the middle. We just missed that random and arbitrary and capricious number or date that they picked. So I just missed that by a couple of months. So then I was in the hybrid. And then the hybrid, every time I looked at the hybrid, it was negative 12%, negative 2%. I kept going down and down and down and down. Meanwhile, my husband, who's in the city, not the city of Providence, but another city pension, he was like, oh, look, the stock market's doing well. Look at my pen. I'm like, that's fabulous. What about, there's got to be a balance here. And so I have been extremely vocal, and anybody who knows me knows that I'm always vocal about things that annoy me and upset me about my pension, our pensions, because my mother was an educator, and she lived off her pension because she got to leave before Hurricane Gina came. Now that Hurricane Gina's come, those of us who are left behind and who do this because we love it. We didn't do it because of the pension. I didn't become a teacher because I wanted the pension. I didn't become a teacher because I wanted the salary. I became a teacher because it's what I loved to do and still love to do it. But now I have to think, do I have 15 good years left in me? Is that fair to kids if I'm going in at 65 years old? Not casting aspersions on 65-year-olds. I'm saying after 38 years of teaching, am I going to be at my best? And that's what my kids deserve, right? Our students deserve everyone to be at their best. But when you're forcing an arbitrary number of people and you're forcing us to stay longer than is necessary or longer than we're ready to stay for, that's going to cause a breakdown in the system. So, I say this all the time. We're going to have more than healthcare when we negotiate contracts of the future in the next 10, 15 years. It's going to be healthcare, and then it's going to be, feeding tubes for the teachers, feeding tubes and wheelchairs and walkers and anything else that's going to sustain us to get through the day, because we have this, again, random number or age that we've been forced to stay until. So getting back to when I met Matt. When I met Matt at the Omni, we were talking to Randy, I was so impressed by how thoughtful he was about listening to what we had to say. And he had met Randy for probably 5-10 minutes. And Randy, if you haven't met her, is an extremely engaging and brilliant woman. But in that 5 minutes, he took everything that she said to heart, and then reached out to me and said, I want to talk to you about teachers. I want to talk to you about pension. And I want to talk to your teachers about their plight and this whole pension mess. I got calls from people in his office. We've talked, I've been to his house, we've had conversations. This is serious business. This is serious business. The current governor, Gina, who robbed us all blind and didn't buy us a drink. I could have said something else, but I was very, very good. So she didn't buy us a drink. She doesn't even pretend to apologize for what she's done to people. And when you look at our pensions and you find out that the majority of what was being taken out of our money and being put into the pensions is not going to be for our benefit. It's to pay off the pension liability that's occurring. So we're paying off debt with our pension money. The money that's being taken out of our checks is paying off for past mistakes and past issues from mismanagement of money. So that's more the reason why the money's not going to be there. It's not because we're not paying in, because every one of us knows that when we get the check on every other Friday, that money comes out and goes into the pension system. But that money, when it goes into the pension system, doesn't go towards my pension. It goes to pay the bills and the debts of those people before me. How can we ever catch up from that? We can't catch up from that. But having a conversation with Matt, and Matt knowing and understanding the tapestry of lies that Gina created, the web of lies that she created to create a groundswell of panic and fear amongst the public who had no understanding of what our pension is, or continue to have no understanding of what our pension is. But Matt does, and he knows the truth. And he's willing to say publicly, which Gina would never say, which the other guy would never say, the Republican would never say, is that this is wrong, and it never should have happened. He's also not saying that he's going to right the wrong and give us all our money. That's not what he's saying. That's not realistic either. But what is realistic is the expectation that we're going to look at this in a different way, and we're going to try to restore some of the things that were taken away from us. Part and parcel of the pension reform. Because Gina did a really good job. You know, she's got a lot of money. A lot of money. So she has these glossy ads, and she has all of the commercials, and she has all of that shiny, sparkly stuff that people who don't understand our pensions and know that we pay 8%, and by the way, teachers pay more than anyone else into their pension because of the early 1990 credit union crisis, when the state asked to borrow a percent from all of us so that we could bail out the banks. And that was supposed to be a one-time deal, and we were going to get that 1% restored to us, and we never did. Has anybody, there are people in this room I know who have been around that long. I'm not the oldest person in the room, I know that. So teachers are at 9.5%. 9.5%. When I started in 93, it was in the 8s. And then the banking crisis happened. And they took the percent with the promise of giving it back, and they never did. So now they're taking the 9.5% from educators, and they're using it to pay off the debt because of all the stuff that they squandered for years and years, from the 90s to now. We're paying for that with our money. But we're being asked to work longer and we're going to get less in the end. Matt understands that. That's why he is working towards solutions, viable, long-term solutions that will get us to restore, bit by bit, piece by piece, some of the stuff that was so viciously and maliciously taken away from us. I don't mind spending money. I want to decide what I spend it on. I don't mind working. I may have worked till I was 65. My mother did. She worked for 40 years as a teacher. She decided when it was time to go. I want to have that same privilege. I decided I wanted to be a teacher. I want to decide when it's time for me to get out of the game. No one, no politician, no human being on this earth should impose a set of values or a set of ideals on people that determines their future, good or bad. That's what Gina did. So now, thankfully, we have someone, Matt Brown, who's reasonable and understands and has looked at the whole big picture and sees what happened to us and understands that although it cannot be restored all at once, there are ways in which small steps can happen so that we can get some of our dignity back. So that we can get more than 40% when I retire at 65. More than that $4.95 that comes every month from that glossy, God knows how much that thing costs that comes to us every month. You know, cooler, warmer, whatever. Another $5 million for that nonsense. But when I get that, I get a knot in my stomach. I think to myself, $4.95, that's not even groceries for a month. And I have one child. I don't have 2 children, I don't have 3 children, I have 1 child. What's his future going to be like at $4.95 a month? Yes.
Do you think you're going to be able to get Providence teachers to go in the primary to vote for Matt? Because that's what it really boils down to.
Folks, we'll have plenty of time for questions after Matt's speech.
Yes. No, I'm not ignoring you. Yes. My answer is yes. My answer is yes.
That was tongue in cheek.
Yeah, no, I get it. So I'm going to introduce Matt to you. I want him to be able to tell you in his words all the things that we know to be true, but he also knows to be true. He's not from the ilk of the Wall Street people. He's not from the dark money, although you'll hear on the radio and from Gina's repugnant ads that he's dark money. I don't know how a not-for-profit could be dark money, but whatever, Gina. You're going to hear from him that he understands. He's looked at the numbers. He sees what's happened to us. And he's going to, bit by bit, restore what is rightfully ours. It's our money. It's our money. It's taken from us without permission when we sign up to be teachers. It's mandatory. Okay, so have it. My thing is, you can have it, but I want it back when it's time for me to retire. It's my money. So I'm going to let Matt tell you what his ideas are about pensions. Thank you.